witnessing. I'll start with London first, where you at, because I've been seeing lots of labeling of people who are protesting about the 15-minute cities as right-wing folks. So just fill us in on that.
Everyone's right wing now. It's the slur that they just try and frame anyone really that's standing up to anything. So there was a big protest in Oxford where they've basically introduced this 15-minute city setup. Some people are still claiming it's a conspiracy theory, but it is actually happening. And so there's areas where they've basically put up roadblocks. So I might want to get literally just there, but I can't get just there because there's now a roadblock. So I will have to drive out and around, which makes no sense to me in terms of climate change, because I'm actually driving further. But I'm only permitted to do that, I think it's about 100 times a year. So, if my job's there, or if family's there, or friends are there, then, I'm permitted by the state to visit them in my car 100 times a year, which is just bizarre. That's, if you're supposed to be a free society, I should be able to go there whenever I want to go there. But so people were protesting against it. Lots of them were business owners whose businesses are suffering, because obviously if say for instance you're a haulage company and I need to deliver there and I can't get there, then that's not going to work. And there was one guy that was interviewed and he broke down. He was crying because he's just losing everything, like his business. So the media looked at that and went, "Oh, they must be Nazis then." And so just chuck that whole far right stuff out there. But it's not really washing that much, to be honest. Most people can see through it. It's like anything. If you say something so much, it loses all its meaning, really. And so the other thing they keep using at the moment is denier. So someone's a denier. So you're a climate denier or you're a COVID denier. And what it's meant to do is, the term denier is generally used for Holocaust denial. So by calling someone a denier, you instantly think Holocaust denial. You instantly think they're not a very nice person. That's kind of how they try and do it, basically. So so we just had this big leak by a journalist who leaked 10,000 WhatsApp messages from the former health secretary here, Matt Hancock. Now, it's a bit of a limited hangout because they're kind of releasing bits, but they're not releasing a lot of the smoking gun. So it's like they'll destroy Hancock for kissing someone as opposed to murdering them with midazolam and all this kind of stuff. So it's like one of them. But anyway, a lot of journalists are, one, quite jealous because basically this woman's done their job for them. And the other thing is essentially they're all very pro-lockdown, pro-vaccine, pro all the mandates. And these WhatsApp messages are showing that it was all a scam. So obviously they don't want to know that. So a BBC journalist described Isabel Oakeshott, she's the lady that revealed all these WhatsApp messages, described her as a lockdown denier. Now, I was trying to get my head around what that means. I don't know what that means. Do you know what I mean? So I was looking at it and I was thinking, she's just thrown denier out there for the reasons that I mentioned before, because it links to Holocaust denial, but without actually having any meaning. What does it mean? She's not denying they happened. We all know they happened. Everyone was stuck in their houses. It's just such a bizarre thing to come out with, to be a lockdown denier. It's almost like I say, I don't know if you guys know what that means, but I haven't got a clue what that means.
Well, I never heard this term before, but definitely they trying to associate in the brain by this playing with the semantics with the Holocaust denying, other denyings which happened in the last 3 years, with a letter V, which we won't pronounce here a lot. But the question is, where is the story with the 15-minute cities came from, actually? Because let's say a year ago, I would say even in conspiracy circles, probably not much people heard about this. I mean, we knew already since years ago that they trying to herd people into big megapolises in order to control them better. But where this 15-minute cities came from, all of a sudden, it's for me, it's a big question. Why is it so rapidly spreading and people already starting protesting? And where are the documents that they planned this way before? Have you unearthed any documents?
Not with the term 15-minute city, but the idea of having people off of the land, out of rural areas and into mega cities is obviously, that's been, you know, a long plan.
That's a long plan.
And so, you know, 15-minute cities are just a version of that. It's basically just a way of selling it to people. So if I say to you, right, you guys get off your land, go up, come and live in this big, massive, high-rise flat, you'd probably be like, well, no, thanks. Like, that doesn't sound like very appealing, really. And so they create this whole thing of, like, it's a 15-minute city, so everything is within 15 minutes. You can get to work, you can get to your shops, your social areas, your gym, everything is within 15 minutes of your house. All that sitting in traffic, oh man, for hours, none of that anymore. It's going to be great. And, you know, some people fall for that. And what they don't realize is that at some point there will be a switch where it's everything within 15 minutes suddenly switches to nothing beyond 15 minutes. And that's what
it is already looks like nothing beyond 15 minutes. That's the ultimate purpose, to limit your movement scope. And I think the whole story about the electric cars, it's also part of this narrative, because the electric cars have a limited range.
Yeah.
And the battery is actually declining with the months of usage, and you won't be able to go beyond, let's say, 100 miles, maybe so, depending on the climate. So it's already puts a limitation on movement, and this 15-minute cities basically will limit your movement by few kilometers.
Yeah,
that's it.
Absolutely. And I think that the plan beyond the electric car is a driverless car in the end anyway. And then you definitely, you know, because you're not driving, it goes where computer says you can go. You know, and people think when they hear conversations like this that these things are too fantastic. Oh, they won't do that. And it's like, well, look back for the last 3 years. And if I told you any of this stuff that happened, if I told you 5 years ago, you would laugh at me. And now complete normality, the sticking masks on kids and toddlers and stuff. You'd tell me I was a maniac if I said that they'd do that. And then they did it, and they did it everywhere. In some places they still do it. And it's the same, you know, now with this whole 15-minute city. They always sell it to you as a positive. This will be good for you. And it is funny because I remember during the first few months of the whole Rona era, I was having a conversation on Twitter, and we were laughing and joking about the fact that how would they switch it to climate change? Because obviously people get bored. You got to change the narrative up, and that's exactly what they've done. They've just switched it. So it's like you can't go with more than 5 kilometers from your house because of a virus. Suddenly, then becomes, well, you can't go beyond because of climate change. And it's, you know, I'm just waiting for the aliens to come, if I'm honest, and then we'll be told that we can't go any more than 15 minutes because of the aliens. That's my next one. I'm looking forward to that one.
It wouldn't surprise me.
No, I know. When the UFO started appearing in America and stuff, I did start laughing again. I was just like, this is so predictable. It's so predictable that it's coming at some point in the future, I'm sure.
Remember this hoax with the Orson Welles from 1940 and 1941 when they announced on the radio, and this announcement been read by Orson Welles, the famous
War of the
actor,
Worlds, yeah.
right? Wars of Worlds. So he basically just cited a passage from a book, but everybody believed it. So it means any announcements of that kind will be received, especially after what we went through past 3 years, will be received very, very lightly. I mean, very easily accepted.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, someone killed themselves, didn't they? I was reading about that War of the Worlds. Like, one guy just he was like, oh my God, the aliens are here, and just took his own life. I mean, you'd feel like a bit of a prat when you got to the afterlife, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You shouldn't laugh, but, you know, you would feel like a bit of a wally. But yeah, you're right. I think the COVID stuff was, I think they tried out a lot of stuff as well in terms of psychology and you know, behavioral manipulation. I think they tried a lot of things. They saw bits that didn't work, bits that worked really well, and they'll be taking notes of them, and they'll use those bits again in the future for sure. I mean, that was something that I kept saying throughout because I couldn't get my head around it, was whenever you'd listen to the news, it would be like, we join now talking about, masks being brought back in, or the lockdowns extended, or this and that. And then have a conversation where the expert would say, we need more masks. Everyone needs to have vaccines coming out their heads and all that sort of stuff. And then like the interview would go, and that was Professor David Jones, head of psychology and it's like, head of psychology? Like, I want to hear from a virologist, or I want to hear from a doctor. And it was always psychologists all the time. And it's funny because I would say that, and some people would go, yeah, that's true. That is weird, actually, because if it was a chiropractor, you wouldn't listen to them about a virus, so why a psychologist? Whereas a lot of people, probably the majority of people, didn't think it was weird. They actually, why is it weird that it's a psychologist? It's like, well, what do you mean? Why is that weird? Why are they telling me about a virus? It's a psychologist. It's not what? But lots of people accepted it. It was like that. Well, he's an expert. He's got letters after his name or whatever. He must know what he's talking about. When actually it's, it's just behavioral manipulation. That's all that was.
People accepted this without questions.
Completely. Yeah.
Completely. Gareth, how do you think about these climatic lockdowns? Maybe can be that this part of documents that were published in 2010, documents of Rockefeller Foundation.
Yeah,
lockstep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they always tell you what they're planning, don't they? And like, if you look at Event 201 and things like that, they always tell you. And I think, lots of different theories on that. But a part of me does think that there is some kind of occult meaning behind that. That they almost, it's the vampire who has to get permission to come in. And it's like, they tell you what they're doing, and by you doing nothing about it, then your silence is your acceptance of it, and then they can then go on and do it.
There is a huge base to what you just mentioned, because in the end of 20s, the Alice Bailey, the follower of the Helena Blavatsky Theosophic Society, she actually expressed it in the book, calling this term as the externalization of hierarchy. And that means that you have to always translate the plans into the universe, and thus getting some kind of a karmic absolvance for your intentions. So if you just conduct the plans completely hidden and unannounced, that could be harmful for your karma. But if you announce it, but you can actually compare it as tongue in cheek. Because most of the people don't understand and don't even get the whiff of such a science. Even if they watch the movie where they actually put in it right in your face, people just see it as a sheer entertainment, and they using this manner for at least 100 years, at least. It's because I've documented this, and what we just mentioned about the Corona and Event 201. I just published my new book, which came out a few weeks ago, and it came into the shops a few days ago. I explained it very detailedly how they planned this Event 201 and what does it mean in a cult world. So this is quite complicated concept, but it has to do with a Jesuit order and with Ignatius Loyola and the concept of the solar eclipses. It's quite complicated to explain you within this short interview, but it is a occult concept, as you mentioned. So it's. My book is 400 pages, so I can possibly explain it within a few minutes.
Of course, yeah, but it does. Yeah, I think there is something there for sure that they have to tell you, because they always tell you. And actually, if you break down, COVID as an example, and people now, because these leaks are coming out, and people are going, oh my goodness me, the PCR test was unreliable, and this and that and this and that, and it's like, but they told you all this while they were doing it. Like, they told you all that. Like, the prime example is I remember various doctors, but Fauci being the biggest one of them, saying how if you went to 20 cycles and above, that a PCR test was not worth anything. It would literally find anything. You could find whatever you wanted. Basically, it was meaningless and pointless. Yet there it was on the NHS website, on the French health ministry, on all of them. They're using 45 cycles. So they told you, you know, anything above 20 is useless. We're using 45. Okay. You know, they told you. They didn't hide it.
But by the way, the very NHS website mentioned coronavirus even in March 2020 as the minor, not important disease. They reclassified it from a very serious to non-threatening disease as of, I think, March 18th of 2020.
Yeah,
right on the website.
They downgraded it. Yeah, exactly. People forget that. You know, people. That's the thing. Like where all these leaks are coming out and they're showing how, you know, this whole thing was just completely blown up by the media and it was there to frighten people. And, you know, Hancock, who, like I say, was the health secretary, is there saying how he wants to frighten the pants off the public. And when should I deploy the new variant and things like that, you know. And like I say, like you've just said there with the downgrading and stuff, everyone knew that there was nothing to worry about.
Have you checked the book of a father of Boris Johnson, Stanley? It's called The Virus from 1982. Actually, it when the whole Corona stuff started in 2020, he sold many new copies of his book, and actually I've unearthed his old speeches when he was the Euro commissar for the from UK and European Parliament. He actually advocated the preferable population for the Britain maximum 15 million, from 12 to 15 million. So the guy was actually, since 30 years ago, was trying to reduce population of Britain by 70%, basically.
Yeah, you're dealing with complete psychopaths, and I think that's where Boris Johnson's image was carefully cultivated as this kind of bumbling, crazy, silly, funny, eccentric idiot to try and hide the fact that actually the guy's deeply evil, which is why his hair's all messed up all the time. And if you notice that, so that's done intentionally. Like, you know, because I'd said that before, I actually spoke to someone that said they met him for some reason. They went to Downing Street, and I can't remember what they were talking about, but it was to do with, like, you know, some support from government for some sort of initiative. And they said that he had, his hair was perfectly combed, and he had this conversation, and they, you know, he'd agreed to help or whatever. And then as they went out, you know, he literally just made it a mess and then walked out into the public. And it's like, unless you're trying to hide something, why would you want the public to think you're an idiot? Especially if you're a prime minister. You wouldn't do that unless the cover of being that bumbling fool is something that you're going to rely on later, you know, and you'll have people go, oh, he's not capable of that, he's just an idiot.
By the way, remember the words of Prince Philip a few years ago when he said that I want to return to the earth in the form of virus to reduce the population.
Deadly virus.
Yeah, deadly virus.
Yeah, that's that takes some kind of mindset to want to come back as that, doesn't it? You know, of all the things you could come back as, you know, if you believe in reincarnation, what can I come back as? Oh no, I'll just kill everyone. Yeah, that'd be great.
But by the way, I'm already reading a new book of Prince Harry, The Spare.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it's quite peculiar book. I mean, he reveals something which never been revealed before. And first, he hints that his mother was killed. He hints to it. Basically, you can see it through all the chapters. Basically, he never says she was dead by accident. She says she disappeared, or they made her disappear. So basically, he lets people know that he doesn't believe in the official story. And I'm quite surprised that they actually let him publish this book.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah,
I'm about third way through. Every day I'm listening about I think 20-30 pages because it's a quite long read.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that. I had heard that him and his brother believed that, you know, she'd been killed, and also that at one point they believed that she wasn't even dead, that she'd faked her own death as well. That was something else that they thought.
Well, he keeps using the word disappear. She disappeared. Well, he never actually mentioned on the pages which I read, approximately a third of the book. He never mentions she was killed or she's dead. She says disappeared.
Right.
Always.
That is interesting. It's an interesting choice of word.
He praises basically or highly estimates Dodi Al-Fayed, at least on the pages which I read, and he also hints that his beloved brother Willie, actually the very very much a stooge for the royal family, and he kind of, even though he states I love him as a brother, but he shows that he's actually doing what Prince Charles ever told him and what his grandmother told him, as opposed to him, that he's always been an outsider to the family, and that's why he calls himself Spare, like very self-disparagingly, and quite interesting. I'm wondering what's on the rest of the 400 pages.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I don't know what happens with him now, though. You know, because he's gone off to America with her, isn't he? And then I don't think it worked out very well over there. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is for them. But if I was them, I wouldn't want to be part of the royal family anyway. I don't. That, you know, I'm not a royalist, far from it, and they're all quite weird.
What 100% transpires from his book, he wasn't happy. He wasn't happy. He's still not happy. But he wasn't happy, especially at the times when he was still part of the royal family, because he's officially not a part of the royal family. But he showed since his younger years, he was always unhappy, because there was the duties, there was always the will of the father and grandmother, and they tried to suppress the will of his mother. That's what he says himself.
Yeah, well, she was, you know, massively depressed, wasn't she, Diana, for a long, long time. From things that I've seen, documentaries I've watched, like he didn't give a shit about her, didn't he? He didn't love her in the slightest. I think they clearly wanted her DNA, because, you know, that family, that Spencer family, is a very well connected family as well. She's not just like a girl next door, you know.
No, she's the Duchess of Marlborough. She's related to Winston Churchill, and they all descendants of Duke of Marlborough. So they are actually part of the upper echelons of the aristocracy. Even though they kind of always transmitted into the media that she's just a minor, let's say minor nobility, but she's not a minor nobility. No. She is related to George Washington. She is related to Winston Churchill. A close relationship, not the distant ones. So it's been also carefully crafted image during her active years.
Yeah, I think it's probably the same with Kate as well. I imagine Kate's probably quite well connected. I doubt she's a girl next door.
Officially not. What I've read on the official autobiographies, there's no connection to the some kind of upper echelons of the aristocracy. But I suppose there are no outsiders there.
No,
they don't marry total strangers. Even the story of this, what's her name, the widow Sims, which Edward VIII married and lost his throne. He had to abdicate. And that was the official story for his abdication. Actually, the real story, the reason why he abdicated, is that he was actually fencing Hitler very much, because he was not only ideologically fencing Hitler, but the old Germans, the entire family, the Battenbergs, which renamed themselves Mountbattens, I believe in 1918 after First World War or during the First World War. And he was very sympathetic to the Nazis. He went and met Hitler many times. So the real reason to force him to abdication was actually his close ties with the Nazis, not that he married the widow from US. It was just a fake straw reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I read up on that actually a little while ago. His connections with the Nazis. It's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, they're Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, aren't they? Now.
Exactly.
Yeah, which doesn't sound a very English name, to be honest.
Not at all.
No. But yeah, that's why they went for the Windsors, isn't it? They went for a name that's obviously very English because it's, you know, a place in England. But yeah, they are, you know, their loyalties are not. Well, I don't think their loyalties with the people anyway. I don't think any of those types are really, are they? They serve an agenda, which is exactly what my phone's going bonkers. Which is exactly what King Charles is doing now with the whole Great Reset and the Agenda 2030 and all this sort of stuff. Like, he is just literally on that from the beginning.
Speaking of Great Reset, have you observed that during the lockdowns of 2020, they have installed countless of 5G towers that took place a lot in the United States and around the world?
Yeah.
Do you see it in the village where you moved to?
No, we don't have anything where I am, thankfully, for now at least. But where I am when I go into Derby, which is about half an hour away into the city, they're everywhere. Absolutely everywhere, yeah. And it was crazy because when everything was locked down and no one was allowed to work or go out or do anything, 5G towers just went up everywhere. Because that was considered essential, you know. And a couple of them got burnt down in Derby, actually. People torched them. But it's kind of crazy as well with that whole 5G thing, because you have the climate environmentalist types who are very much kind of, you know, pushing this whole climate change whole scam, yet were completely silent when thousands, tens and hundreds of thousands of urban trees were chopped down all across the Midlands of Britain to build 5G. Like Sheffield is about half an hour north, and I think there was something like 15,500 urban trees were just uprooted from the city centre, so that they could install all these 5G infrastructure. And there's nothing from the environmentalists. You would imagine the Green Party and people like that would be all over that, but they won't touch it because obviously the 5G is part of the plan. So therefore, you know, you might have a few grassroots people kick off, but at the top they'll say nothing.
Technologically, you just cannot implement 15-minute cities without 5G. So 5G becomes very essential. So there is a map online that shows you where they have been installed, and I'm on the lookout always.
Yeah, I think something else to look at as well would be, and I've not done this yet, so I need to do this. So it'd be interesting if it is of any significance. But here they've got HS1, HS2, which are these high speed rail networks that they're building. Now, they're basically spending, well, it'll be trillions in the end. It's just ridiculous money that they don't have. It's already billions and billions over budget, and it's not even near to even being halfway done. It's basically going to shave something like 15 minutes off of a journey from Manchester to and you think you'd spend that money for 15 minutes. It's nonsense. So it'd be interesting to see, we're looking at where they want, you know, where these later 15-minute cities start popping up and how that correlates with these high-speed rail lines, because it feels very, you know, very much like the infrastructure they've got set up in the Hunger Games, you know, where they have those fast speed trains that literally just go from the capital to that region, to that region, to that region, and then the rest of the land, the countryside, is all just, you know, out of bounds, and everyone's in cities. It'll be interesting to see, you know, just how those two work out in terms of how they correlate, because I think it's the same in America, where you look at the rail infrastructure that was signed off by Obama for a whole new rail network, very similar to that, and then you look at Agenda 21, and where these ideas are for these smart cities, and they correlate completely with where these rail networks are being built to go. And then you've obviously got all that massive land in the middle, which, you know, the likes of Bill Gates are buying up, you know, which the people won't be welcome on, you know.
Yeah. What about situation in USA? Now we have Stranger Things with trains full of chemicals. And what is that? How do you think? It's systematic?
It's a massive destruction of food growing capabilities. I mean, that area of Ohio is one of the most fertile in the states, and so, you know, I mean, for me, you know, for train crashes, I mean, apparently these derailments are happening all the time. I don't know what the tracks are made of in America, like spaghetti or something, but these things just keep falling off all the time, apparently.
Just a few days ago, they've been 2 extra derailments in Florida with the deployment of hazmat team. There were also some kind of chemicals in one of the trains, one near Sarasota and another one near, I believe, Ocala or something like that. But it's just 2 or 3 days ago.
It's ridiculous. And then whose idea it was then to just go, right, so we've got a chemical spill, well, we'll just set fire to it then. I mean, that is just over my head, the idea that, and then you've got animals being reported dead, like 100-mile radius and stuff, and all that, you know, all that going up into the sky, coming down, all the rivers poisoned, the rivers that then feed down into major rivers that go across the states. You can just see it. And again, to go back to the whole kind of occult thing, you know, if you look at the film White Noise, which was, you know, an adaptation of a book, it's about...
Came out August 2022.
Yeah, about a train derailment in Ohio that catches on fire, and
with the guys from East Palestine starring in this in the movie or acting as the extras in the movie, and one of them, which was giving out interviews all over this media, was named Brett Ratner, and the same writer who wrote this White Noise book in 1895, upon which the script of the movie was based. His first book was called Ratner's Star. So Ratner's Star, White Noise, and the guy who played in the movie, Ben Ratner, was complaining about that he just a few months ago played in starred in the movie, and now he had to be evacuated from his home from in a reality. I mean, it's
yeah, it's just madness.
Bonkers.
It's just madness, and the fact that that the Biden administration just completely ignored it. They didn't want to know. They couldn't care less. You know, they just could not care less. And I've, you know, some of the footage and some of the stuff in the river, and they're like, no, this is safe drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez, like this thing glows. It's just insane, you know. And it's, yeah, I feel for the people, but it just feels very much like another attack on the food supply, another attack on people's abilities to fend for themselves, which is happening all over. And it would all tie in again, like how many of those food plants just caught fire in America as well over the last sort of 18 months. You can just see it. You know, we've already got food shortages here in the UK, which they put down to the weather.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing wrong with the weather. It's absolutely fine. It's not even raining. Yet you're struggling to get eggs. You can't get tomatoes. You know, people are making jokes about it. You know, the case of, you know, I'll like smuggling tomatoes, like they're sort of like, you know, drugs nowadays because they're worth like whatever. But it's like, but that's just the beginning. You know, all of a sudden it's a bit of an inconvenience that you can't get tomatoes. That's annoying. I wanted a salad. Oh, that's all right. I'll eat something else instead. Well, what if there is no something else instead all of a sudden, you know? And this just keeps going and going. Because like I say, they're blaming the weather, and the weather's great. I'm looking out now. It's fine. So it's very strange. And it seems to be happening all over. You know, you think what they did to the Dutch farmers as well. You know, Holland is one of the biggest growers of food in Europe, even though it's a very small country, because it's
the second exporter after the US of the agricultural production. Second.
Which is incredible, isn't it, for the size of the country? But obviously where it's flat, you know, in floodplains and stuff. It's so fertile, and so they're just destroying the farmers there. You know, you can just see where it's going. That they just, you know, they want people starving, because you're going to have a real compliant people then. You know, we can provide food if you do X, Y, and Z. Well, yeah, okay. You know, that's why it's important, I guess, to try and be as self-sufficient as you can, to try and, you know, be able to grow your own food and things like that, because I think it will come to that in the end, you know. And there's a lot of people doing that. There's a lot of people since the start of COVID, they bought up land, you know, either on their own if they had a few quid, or in like a bit of a syndicate. They got a few people together and bought up land and are trying to, you know, start communities, which obviously the establishment can't stand, and they try and put red tape in the way, you know, to make it more and more difficult to do it. But a lot of people are getting around it at the minute. And you know, for me, like I've always been a bit of a prepper, and people will laugh, you know, but you know, when food runs out and I've got plenty in the garage, then it won't be so funny, will it?
Same with me. I'm also kind of prepper, but I took care of the land. I was buying the land in the US and Costa Rica since 25 years ago. So now I've got plenty of agricultural land. And if shit hits the fan, I go there and I will grow my own food, which I already did. It's not like a big project or a plan. I already did it for a number of years. I'm just currently in Europe, but if shit hits the fan, I'm going back and going to sit on my ranch.
Yeah. I don't blame you, mate. I don't blame you. I'm surrounded by fields where I am, and I love it that way. Being
Me too.
Out the city.
Me too.
Yeah.
There's something interesting happening in Tanzania from that perspective, where I'm right now, is that a lot of farmland is being taken over by the Chinese. So they're buying out all the crops and bringing it to the ships and then ship it back to China. So it basically drives the inflation prices high, and it drives the poverty high. And this is why you basically, it's just, there's no way out for African people to sustain themselves because of that inflation control.
Yeah, China's been buying up Africa for a long time, hasn't it? I remember, like, my mum would go to Africa for quite a lot, and she would say every time she came back that there was more and more infrastructure, because they're building railways and all sorts, aren't they? They're kind of setting up a whole infrastructure there.
Right now, they build entire road systems in Georgia. I mean, Georgia, not the state of Georgia, but Georgia, the country.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. Because I went there a few months ago, and I was driving around the entire country, and I see everywhere inscriptions in Chinese, barracks with the Chinese people, and I was trying to figure out why are there so many Chinese workers on the roads, and it turned out that the Chinese companies are winning the tenders for the road building, bridges building, and railroad building. Why? Because they actually using the slave labor of the detainees from the Chinese prisons, who are paid just a third of the normal Chinese wage. So with this kind of wages, they can always win any tenders because they are always cheaper than any normal bidders on a government tender. So that's why every road in Georgia right now and every bridge is built by Chinese. I was really flabbergasted.
They resolve the middle class problem in China, right, with the prisoners.
I mean, they come into the prison and say, "Would you like to sit out your prison sentence here in some shitty Chinese frozen province, or you go to the Georgia and work for the third of the salary, or at least you'll free as a free man." Of course, they choose this instead of sitting in a concentration camps, basically.
Everything made in China.
What a choice. There was actually something came out here not long ago where I think it's Scott's porridge oats, right? They're a famous Scottish, porridge oat, and it turned out that they were being made by Chinese prisoners.
Yeah.
They're literally farming out porridge.
You can't make it up.
Yeah, I know. It's just mad, isn't it? And it did nothing. It did it came out in the news as like this big expose of like how horrendous this was, and no one gave a shit. No one gave a shit.
Oh my God!
Still,
That's so funny. Today I went looking for a sponge. There is like tribal sponge. It's called dodoki. It's made out of original loofah plant. So it took me like over an hour and a half to get the actual loofah because all of them were Chinese. And just a year ago, it was all organic loofahs. Now it's all made by Chinese. So that's where we're going, guys.
Shouldn't the sponge shouldn't the sponge be made out of sponge, the actual sponge?
Yes. Yeah, that's how it was.
No, nothing. Yeah, nothing's real anymore, is it? Nothing's real. I'm starting to wonder if I'm real.
Well, they are gaslighting the population, so the people will be asking, well, what I see, is it real? What I hear from what I've just heard from the newscast on TV, is it real? Is it for real, or are they just joking?
Yeah.
Well, the borders are blurred
Massively, and I think that's intentional, isn't it? To the fact where people don't really know anything, they don't trust anything, or they don't believe anything. Because I found that like when these leaks came out here, they came out all across the mainstream media about Matt Hancock and about the manipulation and trying to scare the pants off the public. And when I shared it, that was, is this even real? Is this real? Is this legit? It's like it's got about 20 different sources, but people's minds instantly went to this must be nonsense, and that's almost like they're conditioned that way, that just nothing is real anymore, which is just crazy.
This is the actual purpose of any state propaganda. They put out many versions which would satisfy any kind of population strata. The educated ones, they have one version. For uneducated ones, they have other version, and they deploy so many versions. But these versions, of course, don't have to discredit those people who are standing behind who produce this version. So any version which wouldn't hurt the people who create them is good, because this will keep population satisfied. Any kind of strata, any kind of let's say a population faucet, and in the end, even if you're an educated guy and you hear so many versions, and you will be lost, and you say to yourself, "There's no way to establish the truth." Well, fuck it, and you just cease any efforts to investigate anything, and you would just listen to what a government or any state-sponsored version is saying to you. I mean, any. Yeah. Because you're tired. You cannot just spend hours and hours per day researching for any announcement on a radio or on TV or internet. It's impossible, because you want to live your normal life. You coming out of your work. You want to have a beer or play football with your son or whatever. Whatever you normally do in your free time. You don't want to spend hours researching every kind of statement which put out every day by the government. So even if you're educated and a smart person, you would eventually cease all the efforts.
Yeah.
So that works.
Yeah.
Any absurdity would work.
And it's being bombarded by it, isn't it? It's like just lots of people just smacking lots of buttons at the same time. In the end, the computer's like, "No, I can't process that." It just freezes. And I think that's what a lot of this whole gender stuff is, where people just cannot be bothered now. Like, there's a million different genders. Women can have penises now. Everything's just so bonkers that people are just going, "I don't know. I don't even know what's real anymore." And so people don't bother. And it's the same with political correctness, isn't it? Where I don't know what the right way to say something is. Well, I won't say anything then, because I don't want to offend anyone. So I just won't say anything. And it's a very clever way just to get people to shut up.
Yes.
I find that so often. Like for me, like I have very few repercussions really, like because I work for myself and whatever. So I can just say what I want really. But whenever I do that, you know, people will private message sometimes like, mate, I agree with you, but I can't share it. But I wish I could say that but I'd lose my job, or, you know, my mother-in-law would have my bollocks off or whatever, you know, like people just, you know, they think and feel a certain way, but they daren't say it. And you think, you know, whilst I understand that is also part of the problem. Because if everyone would just speak the truth, then we'd find some better reality, I think, really. Because I think most people kind of, you know, like you mentioned, like have a beer, play with something. Most people just want to get on, don't they? Most people, you know, just want to, you know, you got psychopaths about, but, you know, whatever. But most people just want to get on and have a good life and have a roof over their head and you know, a beer in their hand on a weekend and some food and play with their kids. And that's it, really, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like most people that's what we want, is just to get on. And we're just constantly being divided all the time. It's so frustrating to watch it happening, you know, because it's interesting with the whole COVID thing, because that just tore everyone apart. And then it started to bring people together again, and people started to see through it, and they started to build communities. And then the whole bloody Ukraine thing happened, and that split that in half again, which was crazy to me, because I was looking at people that were lied to by all these politicians over COVID, realized they were being lied to, called them liars. You know, Boris the liar is like a pretty common term for that guy. Yet suddenly when it was talking about Ukraine and Putin and whatever, they all believed every word of it. It was like, you know, these guys lied to you for like 3 years, yet they're telling the truth on this. All right, mate. It's so frustrating to watch it divide again, you know.
Strangely, that in a real life, if somebody, like, let's say somebody of your close surrounding, your mother-in-law, whatever, father-in-law, whoever lies to you constantly, you would just discard this person totally out of your circle of trust, and you wouldn't believe any word they say. But if it comes to the politicians, the people keep electing the same people who been caught lying by millions of people. Yeah, I mean, they've been proven liars, but they've been elected over and over again. And why doesn't it work the same way as it works in your private life? I mean, somebody never returned your loaned 100 quid. You wouldn't loan this guy again, even 20 quid, right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
I mean, normal. But why these people entrust their lives basically to the into the hands of the proven liars?
Yeah.
That's the phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's a conditioning. It is a conditioning, actually. It's what they've been doing for decades, conditioning people through social media, conditioning people through TVs and all these MK Ultra programs. And that's what I see is taking place even here in Africa. You know, they use celebrities like Diamond Platinums to really condition kids to act certain way, which I've never seen before. So it's happening on a global scale.
Yeah, day by day, when you see what's happening in the world, you think it must be mass confusion. Why people, when they know that results of vaccines, it's very bad things, but they already doing, and it's still here. This is still here.
Is it true that Putin's destroyed the big vaccine? Nah,
no.
When I read that,
Bollocks.
I thought, Yeah. I read. I can't remember where I read that, but I was thinking that just doesn't sit right to me. I don't.
It's the same kind of stories distributed by Q's about Trump arresting hordes of pedophiles and rescuing thousands of children out of the underground. I mean,
yeah, just absolute nonsense.
Yeah,
absolute nonsense. I remember reading that, and where they'd got 30,000 kids out from underneath Central Park.
Yeah,
and it was like, right, so 30,000 kids in Central Park, in one of the biggest cities in the world, where everyone's got a camera phone, and yet no one's got any footage of it. All right, sure. I'm not sure I believe you.
But you know what is true? The 1st of March. A very peculiar story been announced a few days ago on a Russian media. The guy who is actually being credited as one of the creators of the Sputnik V vaccine, called Andrei Botnikov. He's been found strangled and knifed in his apartment in Moscow. The guy was 47 years old. And to put insult to injury, some of the news outlets mentioned that he actually, few nights before, ordered some male prostitute with the girl, who spent the night together. I mean, apparently 3 of them, and some kind of having disagreement in the morning about the services rendered. The guy who came to, let's say, to render the services strangled the scientist with his own belt, and actually stabbed him several times. Has he been caught? I think about 24 hours later. That's some kind of bizarre story. And this guy, the scientist, is not only one of the creators of Sputnik V, but also the friend of the biggest pop star in a Russian on the Russian pop music arena, Philip Kirkorov. I mean, what kind of a bizarre crock of shit!
What would be the reasoning for killing him, do you think?
I don't know. Maybe it is what it is. The guy just ordered some male prostitute. They had an argument about the prices and the services, and this guy, 29 years old, prostitute, actually strangled him. And they actually describe him as the model and occasional prostitute. I saw his picture in his mugshot. It doesn't look neither no prostitute and no model, because it's a kind of face which you rather see on some kind of MMA fight than on the cover of the Glance magazine. I mean,
right.
I don't know. Maybe it is what it is. Maybe there's something more to it, but it's just too early to say.
Yeah,
but it is a bizarre story.
There is a little joke about it. In Soviet Russia, if you know too much, you don't live too long.
Well, it's a universal rule. It's a universal rule.
Yes.
Few friends with the big channels of over 1 million or around 1 million subscribers been deleted simultaneously with the reserve channels in one day for the past 2 weeks, without any strikes, without any warnings, nothing. Just in one day they vanished, and the appeal was denied immediately. No explanation given.
Well, what are they talking about specifically on those channels?
These guys, at least one friend of mine who was extremely cautious. His way of presenting information was interviewing different people from different political and scientific circles. They've been instructed for months and years to be very careful with the words. He was actually cutting out whatever was to be censored normally by YouTube. And therefore, he had no strikes for at least, I don't know, at least 6-7 months. And all of a sudden, channel has gone. 1 million subscribers.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. They seem to go through phases, don't they? They just go on like a massive cull and take out a load. And then, then it seems okay for a bit. And then they'll take out a load again. It's very strange. I remember I was talking to a guy who was doing some investigation into censorship within YouTube, and he was a comedian by trade going years back, so he had quite a few friends within the industry and stuff, and he knew some people at YouTube in America when he was out there, and he met with them, and he was trying to find out why all these conservative voices were being silenced in America and all this kind of stuff, and they told him that it was all coming from England, that censorship of that was pushing Biden forward, before the election, that all those bannings were coming out of England. They weren't even coming out of America, which is crazy. Doesn't seem to make much sense, but they weren't coming from there apparently.
Well, basically, remember a few weeks ago, I think the ex-minister of defense confessed that the British Army has a special unit, I believe Division 77 or something like this.
Yeah, the 77th Brigade,
which is actually engaged into the kind of trolling and censorship services on YouTube and other social media. And before that, I think 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, there came the expose by one of the major mainstream outlets in the US about the so-called Pentagon secret army of 60,000 people, which are conducting operations off and online, secret field operation, but most of the 60,000 people, special army forces, were engaged into the trolling and derailing information on social media.
Yeah.
So basically, all these conspiracy theories of the few years ago, they all came true. There's a secret army in US, 60,000 people, and now we hear about this Unit 77 in Britain, and about the similar units in Russia. We already heard many times over for the past 10 years.
Yeah, they'll be everywhere. I mean, we've got a sitting MP, a guy called Tobias Ellwood, who is our, I think he is our defence secretary at the minute. He is 77th Brigade, and openly, you know, it's crazy. They were deployed massively throughout the whole COVID era, all over social media, and you knew when you were dealing with one. You know, you could tell, and it would be to try to get, like, to derail an argument, but also to get you to engage, to take away, you know, to steal, I guess, your time and your effort, your energy. And so, you know, in the end, people became quite savvy to it, you know, and they realized that they were dealing with someone in the 77th. So it's like, no, I'm not even going to argue my point, because you're not real. So, you know, just ignore and carry on. And
I wouldn't argue if it is a real person and not employed by any government agency, because it's just a total waste of time. I'm on my channel expressing my point of view. If you don't agree, just go to the other channel.
Yeah,
go away. I know, why waste your precious time?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. You find that though, people have a go and say, oh, you know, you said this, you said that. It's like, yeah, but you follow me, so just unfollow, and then you won't see it, and everything will be fine. Everyone will be happy.
Part of them will come back.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people have woken up to what's going on, and that will only just carry on more and more and more. I think, you know, because the more people are affected personally, you know, by the cost of heating their house or feeding their family or whatever, they're more likely then to start going, hang on a minute, and start looking at other sources of information and stuff, and realizing that things don't add up. Like I said, for instance, like, you know, like we've got food shortages in this country because of the weather, right? Let me just turn it around and see if you can see outside. Like, that's the weather. Like, there's nothing wrong with the weather, but but you can't, you know, that apparently we can't get tomatoes. And so, you know, people start looking out the window and going, well, that doesn't make any sense. And obviously then they start doing that with every subject and everything that's happening. And all of a sudden, you know, you might just find some answers.
Have you experienced any droughts over there? Have you experienced any droughts in the area?
No,
or weather manipulation?
No, we had a couple of days in the summer last year where the temperatures went hot, and it was kind of, you know, for a few days. But apart from that, no. Pretty much guaranteed in England it's going to rain at some point. So yeah, you know, it's as green as it gets, really. But even then, though, that was funny, because they said, you know, the temperatures have hit 40 degrees, and I was thinking, like, it was hot, but it wasn't 40 degrees. Like, I've been in 40-degree heat, it wasn't that. And so then I looked, and there's like these 3 locations all over the country, and it was like, one of them was like Heathrow Airport, and it's like, right, okay. So it's it's just asphalt, right? Okay, you know, which actually, you know, and then there was 2 villages in the north of England, and I was thinking, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. And I looked at the villages, and the villages are right on the edge of these huge RAF bases, again, with like miles of asphalt. It's like it's like putting your temperature gauge in the oven and then saying it's hot. And of course it is. It's in the oven.
Nothing suspicious about that.
No, not at all. But there you go. They're always lying. That's the only thing you know, isn't it? they're lying.
Well, the more people waking up, or it's because a few years ago, all these conspiracy theories, they were kind of abstract. I mean, you were hearing the conspiracy theories about the assassination of Kennedy, about some kind of alien abductions, reptilians, whatever. So it kind of always been abstract. But now all the conspiracies are about your health. I mean, it's all about your life, your livelihoods, and basically about your income. So your life depending on how informed you are. You wanna eat shit. You want to eat mercury or put your mercury in your bloodstream by vaccinating your kids with unproven vaccines. You want to vaccinate yourself 5 times over with the COVID boosters, as the newly elected Brazilian President Lula da Silva did on a screen. Fifth time COVID booster. I mean, what the fuck? So now if you don't follow the news or trying to research what they're trying to feed you, you probably be, if not dead, but you'll be very sick very, very soon. So it's no more abstract. So that's why more people are woken up for the past 3 years than probably for the past 60 years before.
Yeah.
All conspiracy theorists become practical.
Conspiracy practices, exactly.
Yeah.
That's it.
And we're doing it. We're bringing the light to the people, and we're exposing as much as we can. There's so many alternative medias that are being born over the past few years that allow people to share more. Like I know, like even some of this video will be partially posted on YouTube, and then the rest will go on these blockchain platforms, whatnot. So it's wonderful that we have that opportunity to bring the light and share the masses.
Absolutely. I love chatting, guys. It's nice, every couple of weeks or whatever, just to have a chat with some like-minded people. I don't have to talk about football just to make conversation.
Awesome. We're with you.
I used to play football. I love football.
Oh, same. I used to play, not for a long time though.
But I don't watch it anymore. I mean, I used to play it, but I don't watch it.
No, I don't. I don't watch football. Not since it became political. I couldn't be doing with it really. Same. But I went back to start playing ice hockey actually for just for fun once or twice a week. But I got absolutely battered yesterday. Like some guy just went through me and cleaned me up and just reminded me that I'm 41 and I'm not 25 anymore.
Oh, come on, just 41, a young man.
I tell you what, mate, I didn't feel it at the time. He hit me so hard, my helmet came flying off and went across the ice. I must have looked like a right prat on the floor. There you go. Never mind.
Speaking of football, Vadim did a really nice deconstruction of World Cup, how all the results were rigged. It was probably one of the most beautiful work I have witnessed on Messi's and all these numbers.
Really?
I'm trying to put out the follow up to this video, but still have no time. I mean the last performance of Rihanna on a Super Bowl. It's all has to do with the ritual of the rebirth, death and rebirth, and they just continue the theme which they started with from the Qatar World Cup. It's all blatant in your face. Just don't have the time to put it out. But basically, I see all these big games are rigged. They all been rigged. All made by numbers. Everywhere is a symbology and some kind of occult and astrological concepts, and there is no actual sport in it. Even though if it looks quite natural, I think. Most of the games are most of the judges been bribed, and they're probably most of the key players in both games, American football and soccer. They've been either bribed or threatened in order to obtain the needed results, which they actually want to signify some kind of occult concept. And of course, there's a lot of money to be made by this rigging. So there's always the bets. the betting and the transmission rights, because the football transmitting the TV rights, it's a huge business. I mean, there are billions of dollars made on the selling of the rights to broadcast the games. So it's all rigged.
Yeah.
Because I'm researching this already for many years.
Yeah, wouldn't shock me in the slightest.
Yeah, so we'll keep playing instead of watching. That's the bottom line.
I think that's the way forward. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, Gareth, it's been wonderful.
Oh, it's been great chatting. Yeah, I'd love to carry on chatting, but yeah, I need to go and pick up my little one from school. She's it's funny actually. I think maybe I told you before actually. When we went to look around the school, they had like Ukrainian flags all tied around these ribbons around the fence, and I was like, oh, here we go. And then as I came around the side, they had Russian ones, which I thought was quite cool, really. At least they've got both sides. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know.
Yeah.
Because normally it's one side of the narrative, isn't it? Like here in England, it's all just like, you know, it's all pro-Ukraine everywhere. So yeah, I thought that was kind of quite cool of the school to at least have both sides, you know. Small.
I'm gonna put in tonight the video online with an interview of 3 women from Ukraine who have recently been refugees in Germany, and their kids been taken away by German government. And there's one woman I will interview today. She's from Spain. The same story. Ukrainian refugee. Her kid was 2 kids were taken away by a Spanish government by the end of last year. So I see kind of system in it, and it's already been 6 women I interviewed. I see the pattern. So I'll try to translate the videos in English and see if the people would actually post their opinions, and or maybe there will be more of this kind of blatant disregard of the human rights reported from other countries. But now I see Germany is doing something terrible. They're trying to exploit the refugees for the sake of probably the money, because it's a big business. This homes for the kids who are actually been taken from the families, they've been given the grants from the government, and it's a huge. I mean, it takes about 10 to 12,000 euro per month per kid. So let's say the kid actually spends no more than 500, 600 euro per month. So basically, on each kid, they're making about 9 to 10,000 euro, or maybe more. So let's say you take 10 kids as the institution who takes this kind of subcontract from government. They make 100,000 euro per month per one kid.
Jeez.
So it's a huge business, and the government is involved.
It's very expensive.
Wow! It actually reminds of children displacement that took place in the United States over 150 years ago. There was a lot of orphanage homes that have been completely silenced and removed the history of. Yeah.
Well,
so,
at least it wasn't commercial then, because it was actually run by charities and the churches. But
Yeah.
this is completely different story, because they use the government's funds, and even the foster family, not the foster family. It's a wrong word. If you want to host the refugee family in your home, you have a one room. You get from the government 1,200 euro each. So if you have 3 rooms, you get 3 families, or let's say 3 people with kids or whatever, you get 3,600 euro per month from a government. And so one woman in an interview said that the same woman who actually hosted her and her 4-year-old son reported her to the government that she was abusing the child, but not while she was living 2 months in her own home, but when she went to another location. So the question, why didn't you report her while she was living in your own home? The answer is quite easy. She wouldn't get her 1,200 euro. So she waited to get her share of money for this during 2 months, and then she reported her. Horrible stories.
Horrible, yeah.
Like last time we end on kids. Our last podcast was, but that's what their target is. They're targeting children, so we have to be on the lookout and be vigilant and share that with the rest. Anyways, Gareth, always a pleasure.
Okay, Gareth, we won't be
Guys,
holding you anymore.
with you.
Mate.
So see you next time.
Yes.
See you next time and
Take
be
care.
careful.
Be safe, guys. Bye-bye.